Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
Man, I can't believe this is happening. I mean, I've heard some crazy stories about HOAs before, but this one takes the cake. I've been living in this community for about 3 years now, and I thought I'd seen it all. But nope, they just had to go and outdo themselves. So consider this. It's a regular Tuesday afternoon, and I'm sitting at my kitchen table scrolling through my emails while munching on a sandwich. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? Just the usual stuff. Work emails, some spam, a reminder about my dentist appointment next week. And then, bam, there it is. An email from our beloved Fallstone HOA Board of Directors. Now, I'll be honest, I usually don't pay much attention to these emails. They're usually about boring stuff like scheduling the next community meeting or reminding us to trim our hedges. But this one caught my eye. The subject line read, "Urgent Dog Walking Policy Update." I thought to myself, what now, are they going to make us carry our dogs instead of walking them? I couldn't have anticipated. That would have been a more reasonable request compared to what I was about to read. I opened the email, and boy, was I in for a treat. Let me share it with you word for word because, trust me, you need to see this to believe it. We are receiving numerous complaints from residents about dogs urinating and defecating on their private yards, and some dog owners are not picking up after their dog. The maintenance of the common areas is very expensive, and dog urine can destroy them over time. We all want the Fallstone community to continue to look its very best for all of us to enjoy. So please help us by doing your part by walking your dog outside the perimeters of the community. If you see a dog relieve themselves on a homeowner's yard, please let the dog owner know that it's not allowed, and to take the animal to the designated spaces in the community or outside of the community. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Fallstone HOA Board of Directors. I had to read it twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Are they seriously telling us that our dogs aren't allowed to pee when we walk them? I mean, I get the whole pick up after your dog thing. That's just common decency. But not letting them pee, that's like telling us humans we can't use the bathroom when we're out and about. I sat there, staring at my screen trying to process this information. My sandwich lay forgotten on my plate as I tried to wrap my head around this new policy. I couldn't help but laugh. It was either that or cry at the absurdity of it all. I've got a golden retriever named Max. He's been my buddy for the past 5 years, and we go on walks twice a day. Now, according to this email, I'm supposed to, what? Make him hold it until we reach the designated spaces, or leave the community entirely. I tried to imagine how this would play out. Picture me, desperately speed-walking Max down the street, muttering, "Hold it, buddy, hold it," while he gives me that confused look dogs get when they don't understand why you're being weird. And then, what if we don't make it to the designated area in time? Am I supposed to carry a tarp with me to catch any accidental tinkles? The more I thought about it, the more questions I had. What exactly are these designated spaces they're talking about? Is there going to be a doggy porta-potty on every corner? Are they going to install fire hydrants all around the perimeter of the community? And let's not forget about the part where they want us to tattle on our neighbors. If you see a dog relieve themselves on a homeowner's yard, please let the dog owner know that it's not allowed. Yeah, because that's exactly what I want to do, start a fight with my neighbor over where their dog pees. I can see it now. "Excuse me, sir, but I couldn't help but notice that your Chihuahua just took an illegal whiz on Mrs. Johnson's petunias. I'm going to have to ask you to evacuate the premises immediately." I decided I needed to talk to someone about this, so I called up my buddy Mike. He lives a few houses down and has a beagle named Snoopy. I figured if anyone would appreciate the ridiculousness of this situation, it'd be him. "Hey Mike," I said when he picked up, "did you get that email from the HOA? About the dog peeing thing?" "Yeah, I got it." "Can you believe that crap?" "I know, right? What are we supposed to do? Teach our dogs to use the toilet?" Mike laughed. "Man, I'd pay good money to see Snoopy try to use a toilet. But seriously, this is insane. How are they even going to enforce this?" That was a good question. Were they going to hire some poor soul to be the pee police, patrolling the neighborhood with a clipboard and a stern expression? Or maybe they'd install cameras on every lawn, monitoring for any illicit urination. "I don't know, man," I replied, "but I'm not looking forward to trying to explain to Max that he can't pee on our walks anymore. He's smart, but he's not that smart." "Tell me about it," Mike said. "Snoopy's going to think I've lost my mind if I start yanking him away from every bush and tree. We spent the next half hour coming up with increasingly ridiculous scenarios. By the end of the call, we were both in stitches, imagining dogs wearing diapers and people carrying around portable fire hydrants. But once I hung up, the reality of the situation started to sink in. This wasn't just a joke. This was something our HOA actually expected us to comply with. And knowing our HOA, they'd probably try to enforce it too. I decided to do some research. Surely, this couldn't be legal, right? I mean, there had to be some kind of law protecting our right to let our dogs pee outside. So, I fired up my laptop and started Googling. 2 hours and countless weird search terms later. Dog peeing rights. Can HOA ban dog urination? Is dog pee protected by the Constitution? I was no closer to an answer. It seemed like this particular issue hadn't come up often enough for there to be any clear legal precedent. Go figure. I did, however, find plenty of stories about other ridiculous HOA rules. One community banned children from playing outside. Another required all houses to be painted the exact same shade of beige. There was even one that tried to ban residents from parking in their own driveways. Suddenly, our no dog pee rule didn't seem so outlandish in comparison. But that didn't make it any less frustrating. I looked over at Max, who was sprawled out on the couch, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding around his bathroom habits. How was I going to explain this to him? The next morning it was time for our usual walk. As I clipped on Max's leash, I felt like I was about to embark on some kind of covert mission. Operation No Pee Zone was officially underway. We stepped outside and immediately, Max made a beeline for his favorite bush. I tugged gently on the leash. "Sorry, buddy," I said. "No can do. We've got to find a designated area." Max looked at me like I'd just told him Christmas was canceled. But being the good boy he is, he followed along as we started our walk. I kept my eyes peeled for any signs indicating where dogs were allowed to do their business. But surprise, surprise, there weren't any. We made it about halfway around the block before Max started doing his "I really need to go" dance. You know the one, that little hoppy thing dogs do when they're trying to hold it in. I looked around frantically. We were surrounded by perfectly manicured lawns, each one a potential minefield of HOA violations. Just then, I spotted Mike across the street, equally frazzled, trying to drag Snoopy away from a fire hydrant. Our eyes met and we shared a look of mutual desperation. This was ridiculous. In that moment, I made a decision. Rules or no rules, I wasn't going to make my dogs suffer. "Go ahead, Max," I said, gesturing to a nearby tree. "Do your thing." Max didn't need to be told twice. As he lifted his leg, I couldn't help but feel like I was participating in some sort of civil disobedience. Take that, HOA. Of course, my moment of rebellion was short-lived. As soon as Max finished, I heard a shrill voice behind me. "Excuse me, didn't you read the email?" I turned around to see Mrs. Peterson, the self-appointed neighborhood watchdog, marching towards me with a look of righteous indignation on her face. "Great, just great. Good morning, Mrs. Peterson," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Lovely day, isn't it? Don't you good morning me," she huffed. "I saw what your dog just did. That's against the rules now, you know." I took a deep breath. I could feel a headache coming on. "Mrs. Peterson, I understand you're just trying to follow the rules, but don't you think this is a bit extreme?" She looked at me like I'd just suggested we should all start walking around naked. "Extreme? What's extreme is letting these animals turn our beautiful community into a toilet. Why, just yesterday I saw someone's chihuahua defecating on my prize-winning petunias." I bit back a laugh, remembering my conversation with Mike. "So that's where that came from. I'm sorry to hear that," I said, trying to sound sincere. "But surely you understand that dogs need to, go sometimes." Mrs. Peterson wasn't having it. "Well, they can go somewhere else, outside the community, like the email said. Now I'm going to have to report this incident to the board." As she stormed off, I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and amusement. This whole situation was so absurd it was almost funny. Almost. Over the next few weeks, the great dog pee debate became the talk of the neighborhood. It seemed like everyone had an opinion on the matter. Some people, like Mrs. Peterson, were all for the new rule. Others thought it was as ridiculous as I did. The dog owners in the community started having secret meetings, like we were some kind of underground resistance. We'd gather in someone's backyard, ostensibly for a barbecue, but really to discuss strategies for dealing with the new policy. Some people suggested we all threaten to move out if the rule wasn't revoked. Others wanted to stage a protest, complete with signs and chants. My personal favorite was the guy who suggested we collect our dog's pee in jars and dump it on the HOA board members' lawns. We didn't actually do that, of course, but it was fun to imagine. In the end, we decided to take a more diplomatic approach. We drafted a petition, gathering signatures from both dog owners and sympathetic non-dog owners alike. We presented logical arguments about the impracticality and potential health risks of the new rule. We even got a local vet to write a letter explaining why it's not good for dogs to hold their bladders for extended periods. It took a lot of back and forth and more meetings than I care to remember, but finally, after what felt like an eternity, the HOA board agreed to revise the policy. They still insisted on designated areas for dogs to do their business, but at least they weren't banning peeing entirely anymore. Looking back on it now, the whole thing seems kind of silly, all that fuss over where dogs can and can't pee. But I guess that's life in an HOA community for you. There's always some new rule or regulation to deal with. As for me, I learned a valuable lesson through all of this. Sometimes you've got to stand up for what you believe in, even if what you believe in is your dog's right to pee on a bush. And who knows, maybe next time the HOA tries to implement some crazy rule, we'll be better prepared to handle it. For now though, I'm just glad I can take Max on our walks without feeling like a criminal. And hey, at least we've got a great story to tell at the next neighborhood barbecue. I can already imagine it. Remember that time they tried to ban dog pee? Yeah, that's one for the books. Living on a popular dog walking route means my lawn gets christened by at least 100 canine visitors daily. You'd think all that pee would kill the grass, saving me from constant mowing, but no such luck. My lawn's as stubborn as they come, unlike those delicate HOA grasses that wilt if you breathe wrong. I've tried everything to slow its growth, but this green monster refuses to die. Now dog poop is a different story altogether. If your furry friend drops a deuce on my property, you better be picking that up pronto. I can handle the pee parade, but I draw the line at dodging doggy landmines while mowing. I used to live in a corner lot, and people would let their dog shit in my yard and not pick it up all the time. I would pick it up, bag it, and deliver it to their front porch with a note that said they forgot it and a pic off my Ring camera off their dog leaving it in my yard. It was a small neighborhood, so it was really easy to figure out what house they belonged to. If it happened again after I returned it to them, I would post the pic in our neighborhood Facebook group. It usually stopped after the first bag of poop left on the porch. Haha, one of the things I remember growing up was a next-door neighbor at my grandmother's house who would let her dog out front to potty, and he'd shit on the same area of my grandmother's front yard every day. One day, Grandma had enough of asking nicely for it to stop and went out there with a shovel. And that neighbor just so happened to be stepping outside right as my grandmother was angrily flinging the turd back into the neighbor's yard. That turd hit the wall of that house and they locked eyes for a brief moment of glares exchanged. Message effing sent though LOL.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.